The truth is, most people in the UK will never build real wealth, and today I'm going to share the proof with 10 money stats that show exactly what's gone wrong with the way Brits save, spend and invest. But more than that, I hope to show you that you can do so much better than the statistics with just a few simple steps. So here's the first one. 74% of people don't save enough in their pension. And we're not talking about a lavish lifestyle here, we're talking about the equivalent retirement income of £31,700 a year in today's money. According to the Retirement Living Standards report, this would give a single person household £56 a week on a food shop, a 3-year-old car replaced every 7 years, and a fortnight 3-star all-inclusive holiday in the Med. Man, you're not exactly shopping at Waitrose, driving a finance BMW and planning an exotic Caribbean cruise which perhaps you once have dreamed of. But here's the issue here. This is the data which shows the size of the median pension pot for individuals closing in on retirement. And then this is what you would need for those aiming for that moderate lifestyle. This is a £250,000 shortfall. Anyway, those numbers are just a guide. Things like how long you live for, inflation, and investment returns during retirement are all factors that can affect the amount that you need, but damn, it's food for thought. And to make sure that you aren't part of that 74%, well, here are my 3 takeaways. The first is to max out your employer match on your pension. If your employer is prepared to put in 5%, but you're only putting in 3%, well, you're leaving free money on the table. The second is to track down any of your old pensions from previous employers, because right now there is over £50 billion sitting in unclaimed pensions in the UK. Some of that money might be yours. The third is to start now and not later, because the cost of waiting a decade or so could cost you tens if not hundreds of thousands of pounds in retirement. Okay, not to be a complete Debbie Downer here, but this next stat will be the reason why so many people retire poor. And that's because 56% of UK adults are not actively saving into a pension. That's not just a personal finance problem, that's a national pension crisis that nobody is talking about. And whilst auto-enrolment schemes have certainly helped out, with 82% of employees actually contributing to a workplace pension, which I find kind of ironic that Karen Brady is also the face of, given that those who are actually self-employed have almost been completely abandoned. The data here shows an absolute shocking difference where only 18% of self-employed people contribute to their pensions, which highlights a massive issue. You combine that with a cost of living crisis and you've got 47% of people saying that they've stopped contributing to their pension in order to cover short-term bills. It feels like we live in a society now where short-term cash is almost critical to our survival and long-term wealth building is almost a future me problem. So what exactly can you do about it? The first is to stay enrolled if you can and do not opt out, because if you do, essentially you're just losing money, which is part of your overall benefits package as part of your job. The second is, if you're self-employed, then open a SIPP. It stands for a self-invested personal pension and you get income tax relief on any personal contributions made, or if you're the director of a limited company, then you can get corporation tax relief. The incentives are there, you just need to make sure that you take advantage of them, especially when incentives are few and far between. But it's not just pensions where Brits are falling short, actually it's just the overall habit of investing which feels broken, and this next stat proves it, because 84% of Brits don't have the stocks and shares ISA. That means 2 things. Either the overwhelming majority of the country are investing in a general investment account, which is a taxable account, or they're just not investing altogether. This one really pains me because it's literally one of the best tax-free investment accounts in the modern world today, yet 1/5 of people in the country don't even know it exists. It is less complicated than it seems. It is just an account where you select your own investments and any capital gains or dividends that you receive are free from tax. You can invest up to £20,000 per tax year into this account. The difficulty that so many people face is knowing what to invest in and how to get started. So here are my couple of key takeaways. The first is to sign up to a platform. One provider that I'm using this tax year is Lightyear. Their stocks ISA is commission free, has no account fees, and FX fees are just 0.1% where applicable. Although I do still have to say that fund manager fees still apply. Now they're currently offering all new customers 1 free fractional share or ETF of your choice, valued up to £100 into your general investment account or ISA when you scan the QR code up here on screen, or if you click on the link down in the description below. Alternatively, inside the app you can also enter the promo code Mitch once you've completed onboarding and deposited at least £100 into your account and complete verification. Do remember though that when investing, your capital is at risk and the value of your investments can go down as well as up. The second is to stay till the end of this video because I'm going to share with you another video that you can watch on the channel, which shares how I would start investing, starting from scratch with just £150 a month, and exactly how I would get started. Okay, we've touched on pensions, ISAs and investing, but I guess this next stat is a bit more bigger picture and actually shares why wealth building here in the UK is just so damn difficult. Because the stat goes, the average household will pay £1.23 million in tax over their lifetime. That stat comes from this research paper from the Taxpayers Alliance, and they suggested that based on a gross income for a household of £63,431, you will effectively work 19.5 years of your life for HMRC. That's before mortgage, food, bills, or anything goes into a stocks ISA or a pension. Now, of course, I've got to say we do get stuff for that tax money, like the NHS and the police force and the education system and a state pension, and I'll let you guys debate down in the comment section below how effectively you think that tax money is spent or not. But what I do want to highlight here is that that tax burden is actually getting worse in a way that most people don't even realise. It's an additional tax that you can't see, but I can almost guarantee that you will feel it, and it's what has allowed HMRC to drive record tax revenues, and it's called fiscal drag. Here we have Jeff, and he earns £50,000 a year. He sits just under the 40% income tax bracket, which is important for this example. Now, if inflation goes up by 3.5%, then Jeff also hopes that he's going to get a 3.5% pay rise in order to keep his standard of living the same. The issue here is that most of Jeff's pay rise is now taxed at 40%. So that 3.5% pay rise that Jeff had is now less effective because it doesn't account for that additional tax burden. Now, if this was just like a 1-year thing, then you might just be able to suck it up. However, the issue here is that the UK government have frozen income tax thresholds from 2021 to 2031. That's a decade of stealth tax that the government have committed to, which means as inflation goes up, ideally your income goes up in line with that inflation rate, but unfortunately a bigger portion of that income is going to now get taxed, because the government have kept the thresholds the same. This is why you may feel financially squeezed in the UK, whilst the government is taking more of your money. It's another tough tax bill to swallow, so here's one thing that you might consider, and that's to simply increase your pension contributions, because it reduces your taxable income, meaning you pay fundamentally less tax to the UK government and you put more money into the pot for your future self. What makes all of this harder though is the next stat, which is why so many people are earning less than perhaps what they're worth, because 53% of people are stuck in a job that they hate. Now, there are two elements to this. First, the issue of being stuck in a job, and second, hating that job too. Let's talk about the financial impact of being stuck in a job first, because research shows that job hoppers earn 31% more, which works out to be just over £9,000 higher in salary and over £15,000 in additional pension pot value. Now, there is obviously financial gain in doing this, but there's also gain to be had in terms of the skills and experience that you can acquire from doing so. And based on my own experience in full-time work and from running my own business, the more skills and experience you have, the more money that you can command from the marketplace. The second and perhaps the biggest issue here is that if you hate your job, there's been big research papers of over 250,000 individuals that show that low job satisfaction was linked to feelings of burnout, depression, and anxiety. And here's the brutal reality as to why it stops you from building wealth, because if your job has a negative impact on your mental health, then you're not exactly going to be feeling inspired to go and get a promotion or perhaps even ace the next interview, because you're probably just living more in survival mode. Trust me, I've been in this exact position before and it made me feel like and I absolutely hated my life. It's a negative feedback loop that's really tough to get out of, and it kind of strips you from all your energy and confidence to try and find something better, so you sit in the same job for many, many years until you finally decide that enough is enough. Here's exactly how I overcame this. I upskilled outside of working hours. I learned all of this social media stuff, how to make YouTube videos, and then secondly, that became my own passion project. That passion project turned into a side hustle that I could monetize and eventually turned out into a full-time business. All I would say here is just take a chance on yourself and reinvest more time back into you. But look, there's also a surprising number of people who have cracked the code to wealth here in the UK, showing that it is still possible. With this stat which says that 4.5% of UK adults are millionaires. Okay, for me personally, I find this stat a little bit more motivating in that 1 in 22 people you pass on the street is a millionaire. And to be considered within the top 10%, you need a net worth of £1.2 million. That includes everything from pensions, property, investments and savings, to be in that top 10%. Now, I will say I suspect a large number of those individuals who are in that top 10% perhaps benefited from the rise in property values over many decades, specifically in London and the southeast. Check this screenshot out, which I found on Reddit. It shows that you could buy a property in London in the mid-90s for 80 grand. Now that same property sold in 2023 for 1.45 million. If the original buyer stayed in that home, I'm going to take a chance to say he's probably easily cleared the mortgage by now and would be sat on equity of over 1.3 million quid. Essentially the best 80 grand you could ever spend, because you essentially become a millionaire for basically buying a slightly above average property like 30 years ago. But let me just say, I think those days are long gone, given that now property prices are roughly 8 to 9 times income, leaving them unaffordable for so many people. Here is my alternative solution to this. First is to open a stocks and shares ISA account, because you don't need a 60 grand deposit in order to get started. Second, I invest in global index funds. Of course, it's not a recommendation, but over the last couple of decades, they've historically provided a rate of return of about 10% per year. Third is to invest every single month. Doing so with £500 a month can turn into a £1 million portfolio after about 27 years. It's not quite London property price wealth creation from the 90s, but it's certainly a step in the right direction. The massive issue becomes clear though when I shared this next stat, which means that so many people don't even get off the starting line, because 31% of people are one missed paycheck away from financial ruin. In 2025, the FCA released their Financial Lives report and shared that roughly 10% of all UK adults have no savings at all, and 21% have less than £1,000 to their name. That's one big MOT failure, one broken boiler, or just one unexpected bill, which could leave you in genuine financial crisis. But when you break it down by age ranges of the percentages of people that have this type of money saved, it becomes ever more stark. Now I can justify the large portion of 18 to 24-year-olds that have no savings. It wasn't all too long ago that I was that age, and I was at uni, I was earning £4.35 an hour at McDonald's, and quite frankly I didn't have a pot to piss in either. But if we scroll down the age categories, the percentage of people that have little in savings, if I'm honest, is quite eye-opening. And that's where I think we need to have an honest conversation, because there's two things that are going on here. The first is arguably structural. We are taxed far too much, and wages haven't massively grown ahead of inflation over the last decade. The second, and I might not be popular saying this, but people are spending far above their means. When you see stats of people in their 30s, 40s and 50s with less than £1,000 saved, there has to be a spending conversation happening here somewhere. So here are my 3 takeaways. The first is to start a budget tracker and start to audit your monthly expenses to see where you can save money each month. Second is to build an emergency fund in a high yield savings account, ideally 3 to 6 months of your monthly expenses. The third is to use cashback apps. If you're gonna spend that money anyway, at least get a little bit back for the money that you've spent. But look, I don't think it's a total savings problem which we have in the UK. As I've said, this next stat really does back up the fact that we have a spending problem too, because 32% of people earning over £50,000 use buy now pay later. A buy now pay later report shows that 1/3 of people who have a monthly income in the top 20% of the country would need to use a buy now pay later scheme. And that to me is mind-blowing. And before anybody comes for me in the comments, I know the argument already. People are going to say, well, Mitch, I would much rather split my brand new £110 pair of Nikes into 3 payments of £36 because I get to keep more of my money, and hopefully that money is held in a high interest savings account. And look, in isolation, mathematically speaking, it's not a terrible point, but here's the 2 things that argument misses. First is that it's still debt. You've borrowed money which you are still contractually obliged to pay back. The big issue here is though that 53% of people that use buy now pay later schemes miss at least one payment, triggering average fees of £23.50 per person. So that 0% interest product isn't as free as most people actually make out. A second, and this is just my own personal perspective as to why I would never use it, because I personally think it's financially dangerous. Because these types of schemes make things feel cheaper than they are in reality. Using that Nike trainer example, yes, you've only committed to £36, but your brain doesn't process that that's still a £110 decision. And that psychological gap between what something feels like it costs versus what it actually costs is what I think is financially dangerous, because I think sometimes it can encourage people to spend significantly more, and perhaps more than they actually realise. So here are my takeaways on this one. Simply put, number 1, don't use Klarna and those types of things if you don't have to. Second is try and put more focus on productive financial behaviour rather than destructive behaviour, because I think that sometimes it's not always a mathematical issue in terms of how much you earn, and instead it's more of a behavioral or spending habit issue instead. On that topic, this next stat in theory promises a greater chance of being able to build wealth. But the truth is now that that's not always the case for everybody, because that stat is that the average student loan debt is £53,000. This one makes my blood boil, but here's my 2 pennies on this. When I graduated from Aston University in 2017, I had £28,000 in student debt. To give you the breakdown, I paid 3 lots of £9,000 in fees, plus an additional £1,000 whilst I was off on placement for somebody to mark my dissertation, which is an absolute joke. Now, I was fortunate enough to get a graduate job straight after I graduated, which means I have repaid my loan every single year since I left university. But guess what I owe now? The amount is £37,826.38. But if you want to know what's even more painful, is that I actually downloaded every single student loan statement to find out that I've actually paid back £15,045. Yet my balance is still more than £10,000 more than the original loan that I took out. That's because of the stupidly high interest rates on Plan 2 student loans, which compounded quicker than my repayments could keep up. Like, holy man, if that's not a system that's broken, then I don't know what is. And the difficulty for graduates nowadays is that their debts are higher and their job prospects are not exactly great either. Anyway, enough of me ranting. Here's how I practically try and think about it. If you've already been to uni, then number 1 is to try not to worry about the balance, treat it more like a tax rather than a debt is how I see things, and I just paid back the minimum every single month. Second, if you've not been to uni yet but you're thinking about it, I would implore you to weigh up your options. Look for good school leaver programs or good apprenticeships that still give you good job and career prospects, rather than just accepting that you'll go to uni and then be riddled with debt for the next 3 decades. Okay, this next one I think perfectly summarizes how people feel about their ability to build true wealth, because many people are leaving it down to chance. Because the average Brit spends £420 per year on lottery tickets, 35 quid a month on the Euro Millions, the Lotto, the postcode lottery, scratch cards, or just whatever takes your fancy. Now, it's understandable because I'm sure we've all wondered what it would be like to win the £100 million Euro Millions jackpot. And let me be straight with you, I'm definitely not sticking all of it in an S&P 500 market tracking ETF, and I'm going to blow a hell of a lot of it on a hell of a lot of stupid stuff. But the truth is, entering the lottery is a loser's game because it has a negative expected future return. Let me show you what that looks like if you went big and entered the Euro Millions with a full £420 per year budget. It would buy you 168 entries with a 1 in 139 million chance of winning. Your expected return on that 420 quid is minus £2.07p. If you did this every single year for 40 years, you would have spent £16,800 on lottery tickets and, statistically speaking, have absolutely nothing to show for it. In contrast, if you invested that money instead in a market tracking global index fund achieving average market returns, that £420 a year would turn into £233,934. The lottery, of course, provides that slither of hope of generating huge sums of money. But hope isn't a financial strategy that's going to put you in a good place to build real wealth over time. Instead, a focus on investing, savings, pensions, maxing your income, and living below your means is probably the most optimal play for most people watching this video. But as promised, if you do want to take this one step further, then I did recently make a video where I shared how I would start investing all over again today in order to build real wealth, starting out with just £150 a month. So if you do want to watch that video next, then be sure to click here. That being said, I'll see you over in the next one.